Welcome back. Now to our first conversation. The Nigeria to Bank settlement system revealed that mobile transactions by bank customers in Nigeria peaked at 9.2 trillion naira between January and July 2022. This accounts for an uptick in the 2021 amount of about 8 trillion naira. Let's discuss this and other financial services matters now with Ifeoma Bidoye, a corporate banker at FBN Quest, joining us via Zoom. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ladi.
Right. So looking at this uptick, compared to last year, how are you seeing it?
So I think this just indicates that, consumers are looking for easier, more convenient ways of, transacting, and just looking for ways to do business as much as possible, conveniently as much as possible. And also, this trend has actually picked up from, the COVID-19 situation when we're trying to have as much contactless payments as possible. So this is just a trend that we would expect to continue for the nearest future as we're looking for more innovative ways to make payments and avoid contact.
Right, and we know the central bank has been pushing for more cashless payments. What do you think can accelerate that drive at this time?
Okay, so two things actually. First of all, the first thing is to look at ways to incentivize cashless payment and also look at ways to incentivize cash. And so far, that's what the central bank has done. So if you recall, when this cashless policy came into place, there were charges that were associated with having, depositing cash over a certain amount of volume of cash for individuals and for corporate. For individuals, it was about 150,000 naira, and for corporate, there was also a limit as well. And so what this will do is make people rethink if they really have to make cash payments. So if you don't have to make any cash payments, you're not going to take your money to the bank in cash form. You're going to, look for ways to transfer it, except it's really important. So in that way, you discourage people from using cash. Also making cashless payment very easy in terms of, technology. At a tap of a button on your phones, you can make a transfer, or internet banking. You can just easily transfer money to people who need it without having to go to the bank and, using checks. It just makes it a lot easier. So what the two ways to do this is make sure that cash is a bit difficult for people to use, and then also ensure that the other alternatives are very easy and people are going to keep using them. And that's what we've seen. And so far, the central bank's initiative has seemed to be working really well.
Right, and talking about other central bank initiatives now, looking at central bank digital currencies, the e-naira has been on the forefront of the central bank pushing, trying to push that cashless society. How do you see adoption for e-naira at this time? We got that report about transactions about 2 billion naira or so, and I'm thinking, are merchants really using the e-naira as we expect?
Yes, I believe that adoption will continue to increase. As a new initiative, it will take a while for people to get used to it, but merchants with time will start to adopt it. It's similar to what we have in Kenya, the M-Pesa. As people realized that it was easy to do business without having to actually have a bank account, it would encourage the use of the e-naira. Of course, because it's still in the early stages, we can't expect it to be a massive adoption at this point. But as time goes on, people will see that it's a way to do business, especially the rural unbanked. It will be so much easier because not everyone can go to a bank account, can go to a bank to open an account, and that will just be an easy way to make payments in the nearest future.
I know other countries also, trying to push out central bank digital currencies. They're also struggling, with adoption at this time. Do you think that the central bank digital currencies are actually bringing, advantages to the table for the users?
Definitely. So when central banks do, introduce currencies like that, there have been a lot of research and, studies gone into it. No one is going to come out and spend a lot of money without investing a good number of, research and time, and effort. So yes, I believe I will, and especially as they're being rolled out in phases that are in plan to ensure that they are adopted by the financially excluded. So yes, I do believe that it will. It might take time. It's not one of those things that will be adopted easily everywhere, but I believe that with time it will hit off.
All right, I'll keep watching that to see when people will start asking me for my maybe eNaira wallet at some point. I'll be watching out for that. But we saw NIP transactions, POS transactions, all of them, up, at this time. Are we scratching the surface yet, talking about financial inclusion?
Yes, definitely. So let's look at POS transactions, for instance. I'm sure that many people would have seen at one corner of the street or, somewhere in the neighborhood, there are a lot of POS stands there. A lot of people now are able to transact and, get car payments, their payment solutions without actually having to go to a bank. And so definitely this is a way to meet the financial inclusion goal of the central bank. In fact, recent studies have shown that financial inclusion has risen to about 45%, especially in this last year. So it shows that this mobile payment and electronic payment have helped in a long way to ensure that most people who do not have access to banks still have access to banking services, which is really what the banking industry is trying to achieve and the central bank is trying to achieve. Because when you have financial inclusion for all people, whether in rural or urban areas, you're also ensuring that payments are done through transparent means. You're reducing corruption. You're reducing any sort of hindrance to economic growth. And obviously, that will also help in the development of the economy as a whole.
Right, and right now we have over about 200 fintechs, and they keep springing up, every day. How are the established banks, functioning with all of these fintechs just coming up all over the place?
So fintechs are, I think the way we need to start looking at fintechs, we should be more as collaborators with banks and not really as competition. So I know a lot of times people see them as competition, but the truth is that they actually, have slightly different value propositions. So the fintech brings different services to the table, banks bring different services to the table. There's sometimes where the services overlap, but the truth is fintechs need banks to operate. So for the fintechs that have lending platforms, for instance, they'll actually need to have some banking facilities where this cash or payments are received or are made and flow through. So banks are still required. Fintechs need banks. And the same way, a lot of banks in Nigeria today use one, fintech product or the other. So banks as well need fintech. So the way we should look at it is that they're more of collaborators helping to shape the financial services industry as a whole, not that one affects the other. I think that they make each other better, and that's how we should begin to look at this conversation when we're talking about fintechs and banks.
And do you think at some point, maybe in the future, maybe the fintechs won't need the banks as much?
So you see, the banks in Nigeria and globally as well are evolving, because consumers are beginning to demand, new services, new products, and as times change, consumers' needs change. So banks are moving with the times, and fintechs and banks will require each other. I think that.
All right. If I'm okay, I think the service is back now. I don't know if you can hear me, but another trending issue right now is the dollar scarcity. Forcing banks to actually ration PTA to about $4,000. What's the idea behind this?
So what I can say is that, we all know as a nation, uh, 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 has dramatically reduced, and so that would have that the level of effect that has been inflowed into the economy. And I think that each bank decides what is best for their operation. I think that that's really what's happening there.
Yeah, quite interesting. We'll keep tracking all of that. But amid the huge global and domestic challenges we're having now, how do you see bank resilience going forward? Talking about Nigerian banks.
So Nigerian banks are extremely resilient, especially now that that our capitalization base is really formidable. Regardless of what sort of headwinds that come, the banks in Nigeria have been able to withstand it. Even when there was a global crisis, we've seen from history that
All right, yeah, the network is not being so friendly right now. But Ifeoma, I want to thank you so much. Ifeoma Abido, a corporate banker, FBN Quest. It was great having your perspective on the show. All right, so after the break, we'll drill down on the expectations for Nigeria's Q2 GDP results. That's the moment. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.